Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, mgrahamsews. This video tutorial is for this lovely bag called the Ember Crossbody Bag, and it's by Hold It Right There Patterns. Before we get discussing the features of this bag, there's just a few things I wanted to note. First of all, this video is filmed like a sew along. That means no parts are sped up, no parts are cut out. You see me doing everything, including pinning pieces together, everything, even when I'm sewing. So if at any point you don't want to sit and watch something or you feel like the tutorial is taking too long, you can definitely speed up and get to the part that you want to see. You can even use the feature on YouTube for watching this in a faster speed or even slowing it down if you feel like it's going too fast. The other thing I wanted to note is that I don't give any measurements, so no seam allowances, no measurements, no rulers, no pattern pieces, no cutting mats, nothing that would show measurements are given in the tutorial. That's for the protection of the designer, but also because I often film during testing, and this way here, if a measurement, say for a snap, changes, it's not going to affect my tutorial. So you will need to have the pattern open either beside you, so printed on another device, or on this device that you're watching this tutorial on. So now let's discuss some of the features of this bag. First of all, you can see that there's this front vertical zipper pocket, which is perfect for your phone or even your sunglasses, and it's quite large. So my phone would fit inside, and I always say I have a brick for a phone, but my phone fits nicely inside. The back has a slip pocket, another great place for your phone. So you have a slip pocket there, and it's closed with a magnetic snap. The bottom has this accent base piece, which I really like, and I used vinyl because when you put it on the ground or on a table, I just find that the vinyl is better to take care of, so you can wipe this clean easier than you can the material. So I liked the vinyl on the bottom. The top is closed with a zipper. When you open it up, you have a slip pocket inside on one side and the zipper pocket on the other side. And then your interior is quite roomy, so you'll fit your wallet or any other essentials that you need inside with lots of room to spare. And it opens nice and wide too because you have this zipper tail. There is a crossbody strap. Now, what I like about crossbody straps, as I mentioned in the tutorial, is that you can tighten them as tight as they go, and you can wear this as a shoulder bag, and say partway through the day you want to be more hands-free, you can adjust it and wear it as a crossbody bag. So it's nice to have that option when you're making bags like this, because if we make them for gifts or if we're making for craft markets, we don't really ever know what the person truly likes unless you ask them. So it's nice to have that extra option. So again, this is the Ember Crossbody Bag, and I'm going to walk you through every step of making this bag. So let's get started making our bag. So as I say in all my tutorials, the very first thing you'll want to do is read through the entire pattern. This is very important because oftentimes designers will give information regarding different materials you're using and interfacings you're using. Sometimes, depending on the material, it may need to be cut a little bit differently, or depending on the interfacing you're using, it'll need to be cut a little bit different, say maybe cut out of the seam allowance, things like that. So that's important to note before you begin cutting out all your pattern pieces. The other thing is it familiarizes you with the construction of the bag so that you're familiar with it when you get to those steps. So these are very important reasons on why you should always read the pattern before you begin. Once you've read through the entire pattern, you're ready to start cutting out all your paper pattern pieces and then cutting out all your material. For this tutorial, I'm using a canvas and a quilting cotton, but I'm also using a soft vinyl for a couple of the accent pieces as well. Because I've went ahead and I've read through the pattern, I was able to make some markings on some of my pattern pieces here. So you'll see E1 has a marking. I made some markings on A, and I also like to mark where the center points are and where the top is. And that just makes it so that when we get to those steps, I'm not stopping the camera to go and use my ruler and make my marks, because as I mentioned, I don't show my ruler or any measurement or any pattern pieces on camera. So I like to do that so that it's done. Now there are some places where I may need to pause the camera and go off in order to make a measurement or a mark with the ruler, but I've done majority of the marks that I could make. And again, I've marked what each pattern piece is so that when I get to the step that calls for that pattern piece, I know exactly which one I'm looking for. And that's really important in this pattern because a lot of the pattern pieces, they're sort of the same shape and size. So it's very important, especially for that, but to also mark where the top is so that you have them oriented in the right direction when we go to sew that pattern piece. Another thing I've done is I've gathered all my supplies. I usually clip my zippers together, but I've started putting them in these little Ziploc bags so that they stay together. It just keeps them so that I don't lose them. Sometimes they fall off my ironing board, which is here beside me where I put all my pattern pieces. And also I have all my hardware together and everything that I'll need for this pattern so that everything's in one handy dandy little bag, including the little interfacings that I've cut. I've placed them in here because they are pretty small and they're easy to drop and lose. So everything's in a bag, ready to go. I'm ready to get started. So I'm going to put this to the side. The very first thing we're going to work on is our A piece. And for this piece, there's a mark again, as I mentioned, to mark your centers, mark where your top is, but there's also a mark you need to make from this top edge down on the right-hand side of your pattern piece, or left-hand side, sorry, of your pattern piece. So you'll mark it, go down from the top and make that mark on the pattern piece. So I've already done that. I've got that mark made. So again, that's on the left-hand side of your pattern piece. Sorry, I didn't mean to say right. That's on your left-hand side. Then you'll grab your pattern piece E, and there's some measurements and marks that you need to make on this, and you can refer to the measurements in the pattern as again, and the pattern piece you will need for cutting out or making this little window here. And this is our zipper window. So you'll use the pattern piece to trace that curved edges here. You'll use the pattern piece to trace those curved edges. Once you have those curved edges traced, we can then take this pattern piece, so piece E, and place it with our piece A. So there's a center mark on piece A that we made here, and that mark, or piece E1, sorry, and on piece A, there's that mark we made from the top down, and it's not quite centered, so you want to pay attention to the measurements so that you have that mark made correctly. So from the top down, you can see my mark there. I've made my mark. I'm going to line up this mark on pattern piece E1 with that mark I made on A on the left-hand side, and I'm going to pin them together where that mark is. So I'm going to clip them together along the left-hand edge. Now, I mean, I guess you could put this on the right-hand side depending on which way you want to wear your bag. But for the tutorial, I'm going to follow exactly what the designer has written. So there it is, it's pinned. Now I need to sew on that marking that I made. So around this curved edge, up this straight line and back around this curved edge. So we need to sew along that edge. Just going to turn up the brightness on my machine. There we go. So I'm sewing along that marking that I made. Don't forget to back stitch at start and stop. And if you have a hard time going around curves, what you can do is take it one stitch at a time. So with your needle down, lift up your presser foot, pivot your fabric a little bit, take another stitch, lift up your fabric, or lift up your needle, sorry, pivot your fabric, and then keep doing that all the way around that curve, and that'll help you get a really nice curve. And just keep sewing along. Oops. And even I'm doing that. I'm going very carefully around my curve, taking it one stitch at a time. I'm going to cut these off my clips, pulled the long threads. So one stitch at a time, and that just helps you get a really nice curve. And I'll show you how it looks. So you can see from this side, you can see that I sewed all the way around that curve, and that's how it looks on that side. Now we need to trim right inside this curved edge here. And I'm going to use pinking shears. Careful not to clip your stitches. So go very slow when you're cutting into that corner of that curve there. So it'll look just like that. Then we're going to take this and we're going to press this so that that zipper facing, the exterior zipper facing, so E1, is on the wrong sides together with A. And if you're finding you're getting little pleats here in these corners, you can take your scissors and make little snips further in towards the stitching, but don't cut the stitching. Be very careful not to cut your stitching. And you're just going to take this and you're going to press them so they are wrong sides together. Right now I'm just rolling my seams. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my iron and I'm going to press this with my iron, and I'll use a bit of spray. So I'll spray it with a little bit of water because I find that that helps give it a really nice crisp press. So I'll spray it with some water and I'll press this really flat, just like that. So it looks like that from the right side. I'll put it on my table, it's easier to see. It looks like that from the right side, and then you have it on the wrong side like this. So I'm going to take this to my iron, I'm going to give it a really good press, and then I'll come back. Before I come back, if you haven't already, you can go to the next step, which is cutting your zippers. So you'll want to cut your zippers to the length given in the pattern. So if you haven't done that already, go ahead and do that before you come back to what we're going to be doing here. So I'm going to go press this and then I'll be right back. So this has been pressed, and I did, as I said, I sprayed it a little bit with some water so that it really presses it nice and flat here. So this is how it looks once you have it all pressed. So that's the right and then the wrong side, and you have your little zipper window here. We're going to place this to the side, and as I was mentioning, we need to have 2 of our zippers trimmed to the length given in the pattern. So I'm going to grab these both out because what we need to do is we need to stitch both of the ends of the zippers. And there is a measurement given in the pattern for how far from the ends of the zippers we're going to stitch. And this just helps prevent your zipper pull from coming off your zipper tape. And you're just stitching back and forth over the zipper teeth a few times. And just on both ends of both of the zippers that we've cut. And then I'm going to trim any threads so we don't get any little peekaboo threads later. Because sometimes, you know, you get those threads when your bag is finished that peek out that you missed when trimming. So there's my 2 zippers, and I've stitched on both ends. It's easy to see from this side. You can see I've stitched on both ends of the zipper. And what that'll do again is that'll prevent my zipper foot pull from coming off the end of my zipper. So I'm going to put one of the zippers away for now. I only need to work on the one that's for the front pocket. So what I need to grab now are my front pocket pieces. So you have 2 front pocket pieces that are E2. So grab just one, put one to the side for now. We only need one E2. And I have, as you'll see with some tape here, I have it marked where the top is. I didn't want to write on the back. Normally I will write on the back, but I didn't want to write on the back because this is a white fabric and I didn't want it to show through to the other side. So now what we need to do is we need to take one of our zippers and we need to place it right side up along the, and I just need to move my little camera, the right edge of the fabric. So we're going to place this along the right edge. So I'm going to remove this little label that I have here because, as I was mentioning, I label all my zippers as well, so I know where I'm putting them because I did cut this before we started the tutorial. So this needs to be on the right hand side of our material. So just like that. So this is the right hand side. So I'm placing it along the right hand side. So my material is pretty sides up and my zipper is pretty sides up. So the wrong side of my zipper is against the right side of my fabric. Clip it along that edge. And then we're going to sew this in place using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So I'm going to sew this all the way down using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And when I get to where my zipper pull is, I'm just going to zip it out of the way, just because there's a little bump that your zipper pull creates in your zipper tape, and that just gives it the room that it needs when it's zipping. So I'm just moving that out of the way so that I keep a nice straight zipper. And also so that I don't hit it, because I do have a dangly pull and I don't want to hit the zipper pull. And I'm just trimming my threads. So now we're going to press this pocket away from the zipper tape. So you can take this to your iron if you choose. I'm just going to finger press it away from the zipper tape. And when you've sewn your zipper, don't forget that your zipper pull should be going up to the top. If you didn't have that already, don't panic. You can just unpick those stitches really quickly and just resew it so that your zipper closes towards the top. And I'm just pressing this from this side now. So now with this, so that your material is now wrong sides up. So we're looking at the wrong side of my fabric, but we're looking at the right side of my zipper tape. You want to keep this piece oriented this way. This is very important for the next step. So this needs to be oriented this way for this step. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take that prepared exterior center A piece and place it directly on top of this zipper pocket. And you're going to line up the exterior zipper pocket facing with the side edge of our zipper. Centering this, and it'll line up with your facing, so everything will all line up for you. Add some clips. Use some clips to hold it in place, but everything will line up. So see how this lines up and this lines up with my facing, where my facing ends? And that's what you want. You want it to all line up. And if it's off by a smidge, don't panic. It's okay. No one's going to know because it's going to be in, but you want to make sure that that zipper looks like this inside your zipper window. If you need to, you can use some double-sided tape to help prevent this from shifting. So I think I might do that. I'm going to put some double-sided tape here because it is shifting a little bit on me, and I want to make sure nothing shifts on me while I'm sewing, because there's nothing worse than getting it all put in place and then something shifts on you. So I'm going to use a little bit of double-sided tape on the zipper. All right, let's do this again. So again, make sure your zipper is right sides up. Your material will be wrong sides together. So E2 and A will be wrong sides together. So that double-sided tape is now helping hold this in place so it's not going to shift on me while I'm sewing. And you see that I can see E2 sticking out a little bit on this side. Don't panic, we'll take care of that after. So now what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch that curved edge of that zipper window. So where the zipper window is, we're going to top stitch all around that curved edge. So going around this curve, across the straight edge, and up the other curve. Don't forget to backstitch, and just take your time going through this curve here. And again, I'm moving that zipper pull out of the way just so that I don't accidentally hit it. There we go. Trim all your threads. And that looks just like that. It's all attached now. It won't come off. So see how it's attached? That's how you want it to be. Stitched all the way around the curved edge there. Now we need to take our remaining E2 piece. So I'm just going to remove my little pieces of tape. We're going to lay this right sides up on our table, and then we're going to place this piece with with the zipper attached so that they are right sides together. So the two E2s will be right sides together. So you're going to line up the top edge and your side edges. And you're going to line up the left-hand edge, so the raw edge of your zipper here, with the left-hand edge of your zipper. Clip it together. Line up the top edge as well. And don't worry about the right-hand side yet. You just want to make sure that that right edge here is all aligned. So I have the the left-hand edge of the E2 aligned with the raw edge of my zipper tape. And I've used some clips to help hold the top and bottom edge. So see, the top and bottom edge are clipped together and the left-hand edge is clipped together, just like this. Now we're going to sew this left edge just on the zipper. Just on the zipper is where we're sewing. And you're going to sew it using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So just on the zipper. And don't forget to backstitch. And again, I'm approaching that zipper pull, so I'm going to slide that out of the way. Trim your threads. Now we need to fold back the exterior A, and stitch along the top edge here, and we're going to stitch along the bottom edge as well. So keep your A out of the way and stitch the top and bottom edge using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And you're going straight from the left-hand edge, so where your zipper is, from that edge all the way across to the other edge. And I know where the one piece that is shorter, so one of your E2s is shorter, the one underneath, and I'm going to stop just where that one is. That's where I'm going to stop stitching. And I'll start stitching on this side where that side ends. And I'm stitching through the facing, through the zipper, through all the layers, but not through A. So I'll show you. So I went through all the layers. So there's my facing here, then my zipper, then E2. So I've gone through all those layers. So the only layer I didn't sew through was A. A is free. Now we need to take this and we need to stitch this side edge here together. So we're going to stitch this together. But before we do that, we want to trim this side edge here. So I'm just lining it up and I'm trimming it. You could do that after you stitch it as well if you feel more secure with it being held together, but I just do it before because it's just easy. It's all held together there. So now we're going to stitch this on the side here using the seam allowance given in the pattern. and I'm stitching on top of A, and I'm going through both E2s. So on top of A, going through both E2s. This is the only time when you're stitching this pocket that you'll stitch through A. And now it looks like this. So when we open our pocket, we can see inside, and it's a nice big pocket too, so perfect for a cell phone or anything else that you have that you want to put in your front pocket. So that's how that looks. So you can see we stitched the top. I kind of missed that here. It shifted on me. That's okay. We'll get it after. We stitched the tops. We've stitched the zipper to the pocket, and we've stitched the side. Now we need to grab our B pieces. And these are the pieces here. And I've got it marked B. And we're going to place these so they are right sides together with this completed exterior A piece with the zipper pocket. So what you'll do is you'll turn this so B is right sides together with A, pretty sides touching. So line up the bottom edges, or the bottom corners. You can line up the bottom and top edges as well. It'll just keep it nice and straight for you. Repeat that for the second side. Clip it all the way along the side edge, and then we're going to sew these two side edges using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now, depending on your presser foot, you may need to stitch or switch to a zipper foot, so I'm going to do that now. So I'm just switching out to my zipper foot, not that one. All right, so now I have my zipper foot on. So now I'm going to stitch these two long edges using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Don't forget to back stitch at start and stop. And you'll notice that the designer has the interfacing cut from the seam allowance so that it's not in our way and it doesn't add all that extra bulk in the seams. And don't forget, when you're sewing this zipper side, to move that zipper pull out of your way so you don't hit it when you're stitching. So I'm going to be approaching that zipper pull here. So I'm going to lift up my presser foot, slide my zipper pull out of the way, and then continue stitching up. Remove my clips, trim your threads. Then I'm going to take this to my iron and I'm going to give this a really good press. So I'm going to press this open, and then there's a measurement in the pattern for how wide and how tall this is. So I'm also going to measure to make sure it's the correct size. And if it's not, we'll just trim it to be the correct size. So I'm going to go press these open, and then I'm going to measure it to make sure it's the right size. And if not, I will trim it to size. So I'll do that, and then I'll come right back. So everything's all pressed all nicely, and I've also trimmed my panel so that it is to the measurement given in the pattern. Now I'm going to top stitch these two edges here on the sides that we just joined. So right here, I'm going to top stitch those. So I'm going to change back to my regular presser foot for this. and increase my stitch length to the length I like to use for top stitching. And now I'm going to top stitch down that edge. And I've pressed it so that the material goes towards the B piece. And I'm just holding my zipper pull out of the way so I don't hit it. Trim all your threads, and don't forget to return your stitch length as well, back to the length you like to use for stitching a bag. So I'm just trimming all my threads, because as I always say, I don't want those peekaboo threads later. And that's how it looks when we top stitch down both of the side edges. I think you can see it better on this one here. So I've top stitched down both those side edges. We're going to place this to the side. We're done with this front panel for now. Now we need to locate the center back top. It's C1, so we need to locate that. Place this so it is right sides up, and from the top center, now I did this on the back side of my piece, but on the right side, you'll measure from the right side up. So from the bottom up, you'll make a mark and measure. This is where we're going to place the female snap. So make that mark. So I'm going to transfer this onto the right side so I can see it. And I can see it through here when I hold it up to the light. So just like that. So I've made my mark on the right side. So again, from the bottom up and centered is where you're going to make that mark. So once we have that done, we will now prepare the snap prong incisions. So grab your magnetic snap. And you're going to also want to grab one of your interfacing pieces that we've cut. So the female half and one of the interfacings. I'm just going to put that in there. All right, so if you have a different magnetic snap, you'll want to follow your manufacturer's instructions for installing it. Always use your manufacturer's instructions. But what we're going to do is we're going to place the magnetic snap washer over top of that mark we made, centered, and then we're going to trace the prong markings. And we're also going to do this on our little piece of interfacing here. So you can see I made the prong marks. It's a little bit hard to remember where the angle is of the camera because I'm looking at the camera on my computer, but I should look up at the camera there. So then I'm just making slits for where my prongs will push through, and I'm going to use my scissors to snip the rest of the way. Now, another thing I like to do when I'm cutting through quilting cotton or canvas or anything is I like to add some fray stop, and that'll just prevent the material from fraying more. So I just use some fray stop, fray check, whatever you have. Then I'm going to cut the slits in the interfacing. Now, another trick, if you're worried about your seam ripper going too far into your material, what you can do is grab, it needs to stop sliding, grab a pin, and where your first mark is, so I have the two slits here. Here's the first mark for the slit. I'm going to put the pin right at the top of that slit mark. Go in and come out right back at the top of the second slit mark, just like that. So you can see that I put the pin in. So then when you go to seam rip, what happens is that pin will stop my seam ripper from sliding up and ripping the rest of my material. So it stops it because that acts as the stopper there. So just a little way to make sure that you don't rip your material more than you want to. Now we're going to install that female half. And I like to use some pliers for this part. So we're going to push the female snap through. Oh, sorry, we're not adding it just yet. We're going to do this after. So I'm just going to put these all together though, so I don't lose them. We're going to install this in step 20. Sorry, I'm used to doing it all at one time. Very sorry, I hope I didn't confuse anybody. So we've made those markings already and we've made the cut. So now we need to locate the exterior center back bottom C2 piece. So that's right here. And again, I've marked where the top is. So I'm going to remove these little pieces of tape. This one doesn't want to come off for some reason. There we go. And we're going to place these so that they are right sides together. So back bottom C2 is right sides up and C1 is on top, right sides together. So the bottom edge of C1 will be aligned with the top edge of, this is C2. Clip them together along those edges, along the top edge here of C2. And then we're going to sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. So all the way across. Trim your threads. Mine's kind of tangled up. It got sucked back over. Now we're going to press this seam allowance open. And then what we'll do is we will top stitch the seam. So I'm going to take this to my iron and give it a really good press, and then I'll come back and we will top stitch on top of this seam. So we're pressing this seam allowance open and then we're going to top stitch. So I'm going to go press this open and I'll be back. All right, so that seam is all pressed open all nicely now. So now we're going to top stitch this seam. So again, move your stitch length to the length you like to use for top stitching. And then return your stitch length back to the length you used for constructing your bags. Trim all your threads. There we go. And that's how it'll look once it's all top stitched. Now we've already gone ahead and made those slits in our heavy interfacing, but if you haven't already, go ahead and do that now so that you have your slits made for your prongs. Next, we're going to take the female snap and we're going to press it through those slits we made in top of C1. Push it through the holes, then you put your interfacing, then your washer, and then fold your prongs. I like to put my prongs so they wrap around the fabric, so it hugs the fabric like this, but you can put them so they face out. And then I like to add a little piece of duct tape, and this is so that the prongs don't rip through the material over time, but also I find it helps add that extra security and ensures that the prongs won't open up over time because they're pressed down with the tape, if that makes sense. And that's how it looks with the female snap installed. Now, the next thing we need to do is, locate the exterior D2 right here. So our D2, so this is the inside slip pocket. D2 is the exterior slip pocket inside, so it'll be your lining piece. So I've already gone ahead and made the mark on my material, but now we need to make the prong incisions. So again, grab your male half of your magnetic snap. I'm just going to leave this little baggie here. So grab your male half of your magnetic snap, one of your heavy interfacings, and you've probably done this in the previous step, so step 19, where we made the marks for our second piece here. I haven't done it yet, so I'm going to do that now. So again, centering your magnetic snap washer over those marks we made. Cut your slits. And again, we're not installing this just yet. We will wait to install it. I just dropped my seam ripper, but I am going to add this spray stop because this is a quilting cotton. I'm almost out. I gotta order more. So I'm going to put my magnetic snap off to the side for now. Now we need to find D1, and we need to lay this so that it is right sides up, and we're going to place D2 right sides down so the pretty sides are touching. And I know the top is where the magnetic snap marking is, so I know that that's the top. So my top edges are aligned and they're pretty sides touching. Line up those top edges, clip them together, and then we're going to sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Trim your threads. We're going to turn this so that they are wrong sides together and then press it. And I'm going to take this to my iron and press this. I like to press this seam open first, then turn this down and press it. So I'm going to go to my iron and do that, and then I'll come back and we will continue constructing this pocket. Now that this is pressed, we need to top stitch this top edge. And I'm going to put some clips on the sides here just to help make sure that nothing shifts on me while I'm top stitching. My threads are tucked in. Oh, not this side. There we go. Now we need to install the male half of the magnetic snap through those holes that we made. So take the prongs, push them through the slits. Add your interfacing. Then your washer. Bend your prongs. And again, I'm just using a pair of pliers here to help press. I just find it's easier on my hands to use the pliers because I can grab it a little bit better. A little piece of tape. Fold this back down and we have the magnetic snap attached. Now that piece that we attached the female half to, so this is your C1, C2 piece, we're going to lay this so that the magnetic snap is facing up. So the female half is facing up. We're looking at the right side of C1, C2, and we're going to place this piece with the male half together. So I'm going to snap that snap in place and then line up my bottom edges as well. So I'm going to clip it in place on the bottom edges for now. And then at my side edges, I'm going to place a clip. Now she gives a measurement down for how far down you want to place your clip. So I've got it clipped where we're given in the pattern. I'm just just going to add one up here too. This just makes sure nothing shifts on you. Remove these bottom clips. We're going to flip this C1 up, or sorry, D1 up, so that now we're looking at the wrong sides here and the right sides of this one. So we only have 2 layers here. So we have, it's hard to remember which ones these are. So we're looking at the wrong side of slip pocket D2 is showing, and then you have C2, the right side. So you see D2 and C2. So I'm going to place some clips here, because what we're now going to do is sew along the bottom edge of D2 using the seam allowance given in the pattern, and that's going to create this slip pocket. And what's nice about this slip pocket is down here, there's not that extra bulk in the bottom here. So when we're stitching the bag together, we don't have extra bulk from all these layers. So we're going to stitch this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And by extra layers, I mean you don't have the extra layer of the slip pocket down there, as well as all the exterior layers. Trim your threads. Then we're going to flip this bottom edge back down. So you'll see we only have 2 layers in the bottom here, not the actual bottom edge of the slip pocket. We just have the 2 layers at the bottom. So that's great because it keeps bulk out of the seam at the bottom. So pin your side edges all together and your bottom edge. And now we're going to baste the side edge, the bottom edge, and the other side edge all together. And you can use a longer stitch length for this if you would like, because you're just basting. And I ran out of bobbin thread. So I'm going to go fill my bobbin up and I'll be right back. All right, so my bobbin is all filled again. So now I'm going to continue sewing down that side. And I'm just going to backstitch over where I ran out. And then when I go to sew the other side, I'm actually going to flip to the wrong side here. Woo! And that's just because I don't want my fabric shifting when I come up the other side. I want to stitch it in the same direction on both sides. Now I'm going to stitch across the bottom. And again, I did that on that side so that I stitched in the same direction so that I didn't have my fabric shifting. Because often what happens is I come down one side, go across the bottom and come up, and the fabric sort of shifts over here, so that just helps prevent that. Trim all your threads. Get everything all trimmed up. And then, good. Sometimes my machine brings over the thread and tucks it in for me, so I don't have to worry about it. So now we have that slip pocket, as you can see, all done, sealed in at the bottom, and our magnetic snap snaps together. So now we need to grab the 2 B pieces, and just as we did on the other panel, we're going to attach these B pieces lining up the side edges and the corners. So they're right sides together, so pretty sides touching. And then we're going to sew this just as we did on the other panel, all the way down the sides, using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And then we'll do the same thing. I'll go off camera, I'll press these side edges, and then we'll trim this to the length that is given in the pattern. The other thing I will do is after I press it, I'll do the same thing. I'll top stitch just as we did down these side edges here. And then there's a measurement that you need to make for the bottom corners here. So there's a measurement and a mark for the squares that you need to cut out here in the bottom corners so that we can box our corners. So I'm going to also do that off camera. So when I go after I stitch this off camera, I'll press it, then I'll top stitch down the sides just like I did on these ones for the B panel. I'll top stitch on top of B, and then I'll cut out my little squares because as I mentioned before, I don't show rulers on camera. So I'll make those marks and cut out those little squares, and then I'll come back and we will continue with stitching our bag together. So I'm going to stitch down this side. And the nice thing about that interfacing being cut out is we're starting to get in a little bit of bulk because of that pocket. So the interfacing not being there just helps with the extra removal of the bulk. So now I'm going to press these open. If I can remove, that went somewhere and I don't know where, it's probably in my pocket. So now I'm going to press these open. Once I get them pressed open, I'll trim this to the size it needs to be. Then I'll top stitch along these B panels and then I'll cut out the little squares at the bottom. So I'm going to go off camera and go do that, and then when I come back, we'll continue on. So I've top stitched those side edges of B on the panel with the slit pocket. So I've top stitched those, and I've also cut out the corners, as you can see, on the bottoms of both the panels. Now we need to take these two panels and place them so they are right sides together. And when you're laying them together, pay special attention to where the seams are and clip that together so that it looks like one continuous seam throughout the bottom of the bag. I know in the next steps we're going to be covering it up, but it's just nice to have that all lined up. And now we're going to sew across the bottom here with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Oh, I just lost my scissors. Hold on one moment, I just got to grab my scissors. My scissors literally went flying right across my room, so I had to go get them. They're my little scissors that I use for snipping my threads. Sorry about that. So I'm going to stitch across the bottom here using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Then I'm going to take this to my iron and I'm going to press this seam open. So I'm going to take it to my iron and take this seam and press it open. So I'm going to do that now and I'll be right back. All right, so I've pressed that edge open, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch along those two seams just to help keep it pressed open, nice and flat. Now I know in the next steps we're going to be covering this up, but this just helps keep this nice and flat. Trim your threads. And there we go. So as I was mentioning, I have it so that these seams here where the B is all line up so that it's just one continuous seam. Now I'm going to put this to the side for the moment, and I'm going to grab out piece F, your exterior base. And if you haven't already, fuse your interfacing to your base. Then, using some double-sided tape or glue, you're going to press those long edges in so they go around over top of the interfacing that you have fused to your F piece. So take your double-sided tape, place it along the long edges. And you're not doing the short edges, just the long edges. And you're pressing it to the wrong side. So remove the paper backing, and then we're going to fold this so that it wraps right around the edge of the interfacing. Just like that. So it wraps right along the edge. So that's the edge of the interfacing there. It goes right over it. So it'll look just like this when you have it wrapped. So there's no raw edges on this edge, on the two long edges, but they're in the middle, folded in the middle. Now grab that completed exterior front and back, the ones that we sewn together, and we're going to place this on top of the seam here, and you want to center it. So I already have a mark in the center here, and I know the center is this seam. So I'm going to line those up. But before I do that, I'm going to use some double-sided tape again down the center so that it holds it in place for me after I get it positioned where I want it to be. So lining up the center marks. So my center mark with my seam. I'm going to turn it this way so I can see what I'm doing. So I want to get this all lined up. All the way across. For some reason it's not sticking down. This is going to be easier to do this. There we go. So now it is centered. So I have it centered. So I've lined up the center marks with that center seam. So the seam where the front and back meet, you're lining it up with the center of this base piece. And now we're going to top stitch the base along the long edges here using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So go both sides. And make sure everything is flat underneath when you're stitching. You don't want anything going under but the front and back panel and the base panel. So you want to keep it nice and flat. Make sure that this isn't tucked underneath as you're sewing. Return your stitch length if you've changed it for top stitching. And that's how that looks now. So you have this really pretty little base in the center, and that's why I used this soft vinyl here, because I thought it would just really pop. Now we're going to take these and put them so that they are right sides together. We're going to line up those top edges, so the top corners, clip them together at the corner, and then we're going to line up the sides all the way down, so clip them together at the bottom edge here. So in the bottom corner, clip it together, and then clip all the way down the side. And you'll do that on both sides of this panel, or these panels. So again, I'm clipping this bottom corner, I'm lining it up and clipping it together. just like that. And now I'm going to sew these side edges using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now you have a panel that looks like this, or a bag that looks like this. So now we need to take care of these bottom corners and we need to box them. So what you need to do is take this side seam here, so your side seam that you just sewed together, and line it up with the bottom seam. So you're taking the middle of the side seam and lining it up with the middle of this bottom seam where the two front and back panels meet. There's a middle seam there, and you're lining it up with the middle seam at the sides. So clip it together so that those all line up, just like that. And I'll show you. So it looks just like this. So this seam here on the bottom runs with this seam here on the side all the way up. So open up the side seam, press it open, and line it up with the bottom seam. Clip it in place. And then we're going to sew across this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Make sure that seam stays open. And if you want, you can go back over it for extra security as well. I usually like to go over the exterior for extra security just because there will be some weight in your bag and you want to make sure that that corner can handle all the weight and extra stress in the corner. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pinking shears to trim down this seam allowance just to remove the bulk, so when we turn the bag right sides out, we don't have all that extra bulk in the corners. And I'm using my pinking shears for this. Now we're going to turn it right sides out. And this is where you get to see how beautiful it looks so far. Excuse me. Push out your corners. Look at how beautiful that looks so far. There's the front of the bag and there's the back of the bag. It looks so pretty right now. So I'm going to place this to the side because now we're going to move on to making our strap tabs. I'm just trimming any threads that I see that are poking out. I really like that. It's so pretty. So we're going to grab these strap tabs, and if you haven't already, draw a mark down the center of the strap tab from the top short edge to the bottom short edge. Once you have that done, what you need to do is fold those long raw edges in to meet that center mark. So using some double-sided tape, if you're using a material that you can press with your iron, you can just take this to your iron and give it a press. So sad, I'm almost out of this tape. So now we're going to press the long raw edges in to meet the center. So again, the second one, I'm folding it in to meet in the center. So it's meeting that center line. And then I'm going to top stitch both edges using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Trim all your threads. It's a little bit hard to see because I used a blue thread with blue material. There's one. And then we're going to grab our hardware and we're going to feed our hardware or our strap tab through our hardware. So grabbing your D-rings. And I need to cut these open. So we're going to feed the strap tab through the D-ring, fold them in half so that the short raw edges meet, just like that. So strap tab, so the piece with the centers that were folded into each other, you want that to be folded in. You don't want it to be showing on the outside. You want it to be in so they're touching, just like that. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm also going to stitch these short raw edges together just to help hold them in place so I don't have to use a clip. Just basting them together. Now there's another thing you need to do with these, and that's make a mark from the short raw edge up onto the D-ring, and I've already done that. I'm just going to make sure that my mark is still there. It's the right mark I'm seeing. So I'm just going to re-go over it just to make sure. I marked these before we sewed them, so right when I cut these out, I marked these. So now you need to take one of these connectors, because that's how they look with the mark. You can see the line drawn on it. And we need to place it on the side here of our exterior of the bag. So open up this side seam here. And what I like to do is I like to stitch this side seam open when I know I need them open. So I'm going to press it open with my hand. And then what I do is I just baste it so it stays open. So I'll do that on both sides. And that just helps it stay open so that I'm not fighting to keep it open when I'm trying to put the strap tab on. And I do this anytime I need to have my seams pressed open. Just a little tip, a little trick for you. Cut all my threads. All right. There we go. See how they're held open now because the seams were stitched? It holds them open. So now we're going to take that D-ring that we just created and we're going to have it so that it is centered on the side seam here. So you can tell where your center is because where you folded your material is the center. So you know we folded it into the center. That is where the center is. So you're going to place this centered on that side seam and line up the top raw edge of your bag with that mark you made. So I'll show you how it looks once I have it all pinned in place. There's one side. And your D-ring is pointing down towards the bottom of the bag. So that's how you know that you have this on correctly, if your D-ring is pointing down towards the base of your bag. So that's how it looks. You'll have that bit of your tab sticking up off the edge of your bag, and that line you drew lines up with the top raw edge of your bag. And now we're going to baste this in place. There's one edge, or one tab, sorry. And then the other tab. And just trimming any stray fabrics that I see as well. So that's how it looks. You have that bit that sticks up off the edge. Now we need to grab the remaining 2 pieces of your stabilizer that you have trimmed. Because what you're going to do is you're going to place it inside. So I'm going to undo my stitching that I did. I know it seems a little bit weird to do that, but I'm just undoing my stitching. That just helps hold it together so nothing shifts while I was sewing. So I've unpicked that stitching, and we're going to place this inside the strap tabs, just like that. And then we're going to baste it in place on the short edge, stitching through all the layers. So on this side and this side. So line up the raw edges. So there's my stabilizer. I'm lining up the raw short edges of the D-rings with the stabilizer. So you can see here how it's like a little stabilizer sandwich. And then I'm going to baste those together. So just stitching back over those stitches that I made previously when I was stitching it so it wouldn't shift on me. And I'm using a long stitch length still because I'm only basting. It's not a structural stitch. So I'm still using a longer stitch length. So apparently my scissors don't want to stay clipped to my magnet here. So you'll want to move your stitch length back to the length you use for stitching structural seams. And that is how that looks so far. So we've basted the stabilizer in place, and that's helpful for when we go and flip this around at the end, and you'll see why you need that extra stabilizer there. So we can put this off to the side. We're going to move on with creating our, let's just see, lining slip pocket pieces. So you need your lining slip pocket pieces. So both piece I. So here's one piece I and here's another piece I, and we're going to place these so that they are right sides together. So here's my exterior, it is right sides up. Here's my lining, it is right sides down. So they are right sides together. And this is the top. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to mark a T on this one, just so I remember. Now the other thing is we need to leave an opening along the bottom here for turning this right sides out. So you'll want to make a mark if you're going to forget where that is, just like I did here. So I've made a mark, and I know I'm going to sew with my lining side out. So I'm clipping the corners first together. So clip all the way around, and then you're going to sew around. Now remember, leave that opening in the bottom. So where my two clips here are at the bottom, yeah, that's the bottom. I'm going to start at this clip, go all the way around to the corner, up this edge, across the top, down this other side edge, and over till I hit this red clip, and then I'll backstitch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up to my seam allowance. And I just find that this helps when turning that opening in after. It just helps give a nice opening. When I get to the corners, I always like to backstitch for extra security when I'm poking out my corners. Stitching across the top now. Down the side. Across the bottom. And again, I'm going to leave that little opening at the bottom. And then I'm going to stitch off my fabric. Just like that. So see how it looks when I've stitched off the edge of the fabric? I just find that that helps this turn nicely when we go to turn it out. Now I'm going to trim the corners. Oops. All my tape is on the floor. Very sorry. I need to stop and pick this up because I'm going to need this eventually. Move it over here so it won't fall off the table again. So trimming my corners without trimming my stitching. Grab my turning tool, and I'm going to turn this right sides out. And you'll see what I mean by that bottom where I left the bottom. It'll naturally want to go in now because I've stitched it like that. So carefully poke out your corners. And if you find that there's still a lot of bulk in the corners, you can go in and trim them down a little bit more. And then when you do this, see how that naturally turns in? There's a thread there, but see how that naturally turned under because I've stitched up, so that naturally makes it want to go where it's supposed to go. Now I'm going to go give this a really good press, and when I come back, we'll top stitch this top edge and we'll attach this to our bag. Now we're going to top stitch that top edge here, and the top edge is the edge that is opposite of the opening. So change to your top stitch length. Stitch all the way across. Trim your threads. Oh, I can't get that thread. There we go. There we go. And now we're going to take this and we're going to attach it to our lining main panel. Now you need to know where your top is, and this is piece H, by the way. So mark your top and your centers. Flip it so it is right sides up. Now what I like to do is fold this in half and then press it with my fingers so that I get a crease in the center. And then I'll do the same thing with my slip pocket. And then we can center this. Now there's a mark that we need to make from the top edge down for where the slip pocket is going to go. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to make that mark and pin it in place. I'm not going to make a mark. I'm just going to pin it in place where it needs to be, but it's from the top down, and then there's a line you need to make, and then you'll pin it in place there. So I'm going to go off camera and do that, and then I'll come back and we will sew our pocket in place. All right, so I've got that pinned in place, and I've went from the measurement down from the top, and it's centered. And to center it, like I said, I line up these center creases that I made on my lining panel and my slip pocket. Now we're going to sew down the side of the slip pocket, across the bottom, and up the other side, back stitching well at start and stop, because there's a lot of stress on these pockets, so you want to make sure you back stitch well there. And if you want, you can back stitch in the bottom corners too, if you want that little bit of extra security down there. I usually don't. Trim your threads. And then that's how your slip pocket looks. Now, if you want to have a divided slip pocket, say you want it to have smaller sections, you could sew up the center or divide this however you want for the slip pocket. But in the pattern, it's written to have this nice big slip pocket, which is great. You can slip your phone or even a wallet or anything in there. Put this panel to the side for now. We are going to move on to making our zipper pocket. So you need to locate your J1 piece. And this piece, we need to make some markings, as you see that I have already made here. You're going to make this rectangular box, so all the way around, and I've marked my center points. Once you have those marked, and the measurements are given in the pattern for where you're going to make those marks, grab your remaining lining H piece, and I need to grab back those pins, and there's a measurement from the top down that you're going to make, and that's where you're going to line this up. So this is right sides up, and the J1 is right sides down. So I drew that box on the wrong side of J1. So now I'm lining up my center marks, and I'm lining it up with that mark I made from the top edge of my lining H. So top edge down, there's the line I made. J1, right sides together with H. So they are pretty sides touching, lining up the center marks. And I folded H just like I did for the other lining when I was attaching the slip pocket. I folded it in half and created that crease. Now I'm going to take my pins and I'm going to pin this in place. And then we're going to sew this, but we're only going to sew the top long edges, not the short edges, just the top. And you want to make sure you backstitch at start and stop. So I'm going to make sure I start right in that corner. So I start with my needle down. Sorry, that slammed kind of loud. Stitch all the way across on top of that line you made. Now across the other edge, again, starting in that corner. Backstitch at start and stop. Trim your threads. And I'm not so worried about the ones back here because those are going to be on the inside of the bag. No one's ever going to see it. So that's how that looks so far. I've stitched only on the long top and bottom lines. Now we need to cut the center of this pocket. And to do that, you'll need to grab your seam ripper, and you can draw a line in the center. And then when you get to the ends, you can draw little V's in the end, which makes this look like little Y's. So I'll just show you with my pen. So it looks like little Y's when we get to the ends. So it'll look like that. So if you turn it, you see it looks like a little Y. I was so excited to see that written in this pattern as well, because I thought I was the only one that ever said that. I've never made any of this patterns by this designer before. So like I said, I was really excited to see that they also said that it looks like Y's, a Y shape in the end there. So we're going to cut right over, and then careful when we cut in towards that corner, and we're stopping when we hit that line that we made on the side here. So you can see I stopped when I hit that line. So cut all over to the other end. Carefully cut into the corners without clipping stitches. And then you have your little Y cut out here. Let's see if I can show you. There you go. So see, you can see a little V or triangle or a Y. Now we're going to take this to our iron, and we're going to press this through to the wrong side. You want them to be wrong sides touching. So I just like to press this with my fingers first to get it nice and crisp. Push it through that opening. And then we're going to press these so that they are wrong sides touching. And it'll look like this when you're done. So I'm going to go to my iron, I'm going to give it a really good press, and when I come back, we'll continue on with constructing our pocket. Now this is all pressed nice and flat. We can put this to the side for now, because now we need to construct the zipper pocket. So grab your J2 pieces and your zipper pocket zipper. This is the one that we stitched on earlier at the ends. So I'm just going to remove all my tape. So we only need one of the zipper pocket pieces, so place one to the side for now. Place your zipper pocket J2 piece so it is right sides up, and then you're going to place your zipper so it is right sides down, or right sides up, sorry, on top of the top long edge. So I've marked a T so I know where the top of my pocket is, and I'm aligning the top raw edge of the zipper pocket with the top long edge of the zipper, pinning it in place. And then I'm going to sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. And again, when I get to that zipper pull, I'm going to zip it out of the way. And I'm not worried about zipping my zipper off, because remember, we stitched the ends of that zipper so that our pull doesn't come off. Trim your threads. And then press it so that the zipper is pressed away from the zipper pocket. And I'm just finger pressing, but you can go ahead and take this to your iron to give it a really good press. But when you're looking at it and you're on the right side of your zipper, you will see the wrong side of your pocket. Now we're going to repeat that for the second side of the J2 piece. So again, placing it right sides up. Place the zipper so that it lines up the long edge of the zipper with the top edge of our pocket. And then again, stitch this in place using the seam allowance given in the pattern. again, press this away from the zipper. And I'm just finger pressing. You can definitely take this to your iron and press it with your iron. Now, you need to leave this so that the zipper pocket pieces are wrong side up, and your zipper, you're looking at the right side of your zipper, and the zipper pull when closed will be going to the left. So this is how it looks. Wrong sides of the pockets, right side of the zipper, zipper closing to the left. Grab back that lining piece that we put our zipper facing in, because we're going to take this and place it on top of the zipper, centering the zipper teeth within that zipper window. But what I'm going to do first is use some double-sided tape, and I'm going to place it along the long edges of the zipper. And this is just going to help hold it in place. Leaving my zipper pocket open like this. You want to leave it flat like this. So zipper pocket stays flat. Remove the paper backing from the double-sided tape. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to center the zipper window within the zipper within the zipper window, sorry. My nail was just stuck. This double-sided tape likes to stick to my nails more than anything else. So centering it. And it's nice with the tape because you can reposition it if you need to. It's not permanently stuck. We haven't sewn it yet. So if you have to do any shifting around, now is the time. So you can see my zipper is centered within my zipper opening, just like that. I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to fold it down and clip it. This way here it stays out of my way. And I'm also going to add some pins to the bottom half of the zipper pocket just to help hold it down so it doesn't end up shifting up under my stitching when I'm stitching around this zipper window. So now I'm going to stitch all the way around this zipper opening here. And if you don't want to backstitch because you don't want to have any backstitching, what you do is you leave long threads. So make some long thread tails. Start stitching without backstitching. So right there, I'm not going to backstitch. I'm just going to start stitching. And I'm just stitching along. And again, the pocket is flat. It's not underneath where I'm stitching. I'm going to move my zipper pull out of the way. Now, when I come back to where I started, I want to stop in the same hole I started in. I need to take one more stitch. And I'm back in the hole I started in, so I'm going to lift up my needle, long thread tails. Then what I'm going to do is pull on the back thread, and that creates a little loop. And I'm just going to pull that through to the wrong side so that there's 4 threads. All threads are at the back now. Then I'm going to tie these off. So I'll put them in pairs and I will tie them off. If they will separate, there we go. So just tie a knot. And if you're worried about your knot coming undone, you can add a little bit of fray stop or glue to it, but you'll need to let it dry before you continue stitching your bag. I've never had an issue with the knot coming undone, but that there prevents any back stitching, so you don't see any back stitching. It's nice when you have a material like I have here where you would see the back stitching a little bit more, but if you had a busier print, you wouldn't see the back stitching really at all. But it's just nice to have that option for the back stitching. Now we need to flip this over to the side, to the back. So we're looking at the wrong sides now, and we need to pin or clip our side edges together. And then we're going to sew these side edges using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And one of the edges is shorter than the other. So the bottom here, you see how we have one shorter than the other? I'm going to stop stitching at that edge that gets shorter because we're going to trim this after so that they are the same length. So moving your lining panel out of the way, so move H out of the way. Go all the way down. And stop when you get to the bottom that is shorter, so the shorter edge. And I actually stitch right up over the zipper and right up over our facing and everything when I'm stitching. I go right up to that facing. I just figure it's extra security all the way up. Now we're going to trim that bottom of the pocket even with each other. And if you really want to be precise, you can definitely take this to your cutting mat and use your rotary cutter and your ruler to trim it. But I just left it like that with my scissors. Now we have a pocket and the bottom is left open because we'll need to use that for turning right sides out later. Place that to the side. Grab your remaining zipper, and if you haven't already, trim it to length. And what you're going to do is on the closed end of the zipper, so the end that doesn't open with your zipper. So when we take this and we split it, that's the opened end. So as we're going up where the zipper closes, the opposite end, we're going to sew a few stitches there, and that'll just prevent the zipper from coming off when we're sliding it around. Now, there's a mark you need to make from this open end down, and that's where we're going to pinch the zipper at that mark, and then you're going to turn it so that where that mark is now under my zipper teeth. And I have a tutorial on my YouTube channel for how to do this. It goes into a little bit more depth. So I'll post that in the comments or in the description below so you can refer to that. So you can just pause this, open up a new tab, and go and watch it in the new tab if you need more instruction. But what you do is you pinch the zipper at that mark so that it becomes wrong sides together. Then take where you've pinched and bring it up under the zipper teeth. I use a pin to hold it in place. Repeat that on the other side. Another pin. And then I hand crank when I start near where this pin is to help hold it in place, because we're going to stitch that. So I just start hand cranking. Remove the pin. And then I do that with the other side. And when I get up near that pin, I'll hand crank. So I'm where that pin is, I can remove it. And now I can just backstitch. Trim all your little threads. And then you can trim the zipper so it is even on the sides here with your zipper tape. And then we'll measure our zipper and make sure it measures the right length that's given in the pattern. So I'm going to go off camera to measure that and make sure it's the right length. And if not, I'll trim from the opposite end down here to get it to the correct length. So I'll trim this end off and then I'll re-stitch if I need to. So I'm going to go off camera, I'm going to check that length, and then I'll come back and I'll continue on with making our bag. All right, so I've checked the length. It's all good. We're good to continue on. Now we need to locate our zipper stop. So it looks like this, piece L. We're going to press the raw edges so that they overlap the interfacing in the center. So press them so it overlaps, just like we did when we made our base of our bag, our exterior base. So it overlaps the interfacing just like that. And then you need to press the short raw edges up to overlap the interfacing. And I'll end up going off camera and I'll press this with my iron so that I get a really nice crisp zipper stop. I'll add a clip so you can see how it's going to look. So it'll look like that. All the raw edges are pressed in towards the center. So I'm going to go press this with my iron and then I'll come back and we will attach our zipper to our panels. All right, so I've given that a good press. Now we need to take this piece and fold it in half so these short edges meet. So you can just press it in half with your fingers. And then you're going to place the end of the zipper into the zipper stop so that the end of the zipper touches that center crease. Fold it in half. Add some clips to help hold it in place. Just like that. So it's going to look like that. Now we're going to stitch all the way around this zipper stop. Don't forget to backstitch at start and stop. And that's how it'll look when you're done. You have your little zipper stop on the end of your zipper tape. Now we're going to put this to the side for now and move on to creating our zipper panels. Now, your panel will be one big piece like this. You're going to draw a line down the center. So on the wrong side, because you want to divide these into two pieces. So on the zipper casing, down the horizontal line, so from the top short edge to the other top short edge, to the bottom short edge, draw a line down the center. Then you're going to cut them in half, just like this. This is easier to see this way. So from the short edge to short edge, draw a line down the center, and then cut them into two. Once you have that done, you'll then attach your interfacing to the wrong side using the measurements given in the pattern for where to place it. Once you have those done, you will then take your casing and you will fold them, so the short edges, fold it so it ends up going over the interfacing, just like we did with that zipper stop. So just like that, fold the short edges in. And if you want, you can double check with the measurement given in the pattern to make sure you're folding them the right amount. So just like that on the short edges. Then you'll fold the long edges up over the interfacing. And I need to do this with my iron so that I get a really nice press. You can also use some double-sided tape, which I think I will use after. Then you'll press the long edges so that they come over the casing just like that. And once you have that done, you can do that with the second one. So I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to press that all, and then I'll come back and we will install the zipper into these. All right, so I've pressed these all, and I also added some double-sided tape just to really help hold it in place so they stayed nicely pressed, but that's how they'll look. The right side will have no raw edges, and the raw edges are all tucked inside. Now we need to attach our zipper to our zipper casing. So this is K here. So I'm going to add some double-sided tape along the edge of my zipper casing. And this will just help hold the zipper in place. And I'm going to open this zipper up all the way so that it goes to the end, just to make it so that it's easier for me. And you need to line up the edge of your zipper, so this edge where the zipper teeth are turned, you need to line that up with the marking that is given in the pattern for how far over it needs to be, and also how far down the teeth need to be from your zipper casing as well. I'm just checking on this side that it's nice and even. So it'll look like that right now, because then we're going to fold this over and you're going to have the raw edges, or the folded edges, there's no raw edges, lined up like that. So I'm going to place another piece of tape on the other side of the casing. I really like double-sided tape because it holds everything nicely and neatly in place for me, and I don't have to worry about anything shifting when I'm sewing. So I'm going to line up those folded edges. Press it down. And this needs to come up a bit. So it's going to look like that once it's all enclosed. So now I'm going to repeat that for the other side, because after this I'm going to end up stitching it all, and I'd rather just stitch it all at the same time. So I'm putting it together again, lining up that mark with where it needs to be for the edge of the zipper. Just like that. And you can even measure it and see. So what I like to do is just put this like this, and you'll feel my tape. I'm measuring them so they're the same width on both sides. So this stops in line with the casing, and on the other side as well. If you want to make sure you have it the exact same measurement, just a little trick I do. This is a different way of doing our zipper panels. I like when we learn new techniques. So again, folding those edges so they meet. Pressing it in place. And then when you close them, you'll see these edges here, these edges line up, and this edge lines up as well. Now we're going to stitch these all the way around. So down one short edge, across the edge where the zipper is, and up the other short edge using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So top stitch these. Don't forget to back stitch at start and stop. I'm just zipping my zipper out of the way just so I don't hit it. I'm just trying to get so that I can have a nice, accurate seam allowance. Trim your threads. And then stitch the other side. Sometimes you have to take a slightly smaller stitch length. In order to have an accurate seam allowance. And that's how it looks when you have it all stitched. Now we need to mark the centers of our zipper casing. So fold this in half. Ooh, there's some threads there. Fold this in half. I didn't see that. Fold your casing in half, lining up the short edges, and then press it so that you can find where the center is. So give it a press. On both ends. And then where that fold is, mark the center. You could even take this to your ruler and measure with your ruler if you want, but you know what? I have a ruler here I can measure off camera. Yeah, perfect. So I've just measured, that's perfect, those are centered, and that's what you want. Now we need to grab our lining panel, and we need to go and make those cuts in the bottom corners just like we did for the exterior. So in your bottom corners, you're going to cut out little squares. So I'm going to go and do that off camera, and then I'll come back and we will finish constructing the bag. All right, so now we need to take these two pieces and we need to attach that zipper that goes at the top. So put one off to the side for now. Actually, I'm going to start with the zipper pocket one because I want to make sure that my zipper closes the same way as the zipper pocket. So I'm going to take the center marking on the zipper panel, so on our zipper casing, and I'm going to line it up with the center mark on top of my lining panel. Clip it in place. And then I'm going to sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now we're going to sew the second side to the side with the zipper slip pocket. So take this and laying your slip pocket piece right sides up, we're going to take the zipper facing and have it right sides up, or sorry, the zipper casing. It's going to be right sides up, and we're lining up those center marks. So right now I'm looking at the right side of the zipper casing, but the wrong side of the panel that we've already attached. And my zippers are both going in the same direction. Stitch this in place. And now you have a panel that looks like this. You have your zipper attached at the top. Now you want to make sure your zipper pocket is unzipped. So unzip your zipper pocket so it is open. You want to make sure that's open. Now we're going to push the zipper tail in, and we're going to clip our sides together just like we did with the exterior. So we're going to clip the sides together so they're right sides together on the lining. There's so many clips on my floor right now, I just know it. Hopefully I find them before one of the cats do. So now we're going to sew the sides and the bottom, and you want to pay attention to the seam allowance for this because the seam allowance is a little bit different than the seam allowance for the exterior. So you want to pay attention. Now, same thing we did with our exterior. Ow, I just bashed my knee on a bin. That really hurt. I'm going to open up this zipper because this is going to help me. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the exterior. I'm going to baste this seam at the top open first before I do anything else because I want to make sure this seam stays open for me. I'll trim all my threads after. And this is just to help this stay open. Same thing we did before we attached our strap tabs. Oops. Okay, so I'm trimming all my threads. Now, you want to press these seams both open, and you want to line them up just like we did with the exterior. So press the seams open and then line them up so that the seam lines up with each other. So the bottom seam and the side seam all line up. It's really hurting. So press, oops, I did have that. Press this seam open, the bottom seam. Press the side seam open, and again, line them up. Why can't I do this? There we go. So everything's all lined up. And then we're going to sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Careful not to sew through anything else but that corner that you're sewing, because we're boxing these corners. Now, as I mentioned, on the exterior, I like to sew through it a second time. The lining, I'm not so concerned because I've sewn through the exterior that second time, but for extra security, you can definitely sew through your lining a second time. One other thing I'm going to do is trim the seam allowance just in the corners. That reduces the bulk. Make sure all your zippers are open again. Do one more double check to make sure all your zippers are open. So now what we're going to do is we're going to place the exterior inside our lining. So your exterior is right sides out and your lining is wrong sides out. And you want to be sure the slip pocket on the exterior front are facing the same side as the slip pocket inside the bag. So slip pocket here on the back and slip pocket here on the back. So both my slip pockets are currently touching each other. Now you're going to line up your side seams, clip it in place. Make sure your zipper is pushed down. You don't want to have your zipper sticking up. Zipper is down. Clip your side seams together. Now, I've made center marks on my exterior and my lining, so I'm lining up those center marks here with the exterior and lining. So exterior center mark, lining center mark, which is also on my zipper. I want to make sure I'm calling it the right thing. Casing. Sorry if I confuse you and call it something different. If I remember correctly, this was piece K. Yep, zipper casing. So pin it the rest of the way around. And I'm just flattening it down so it stays down. We're really almost done. It's very exciting, this part, when we're putting the bag together. Now we're going to stitch around the entire top of the bag using the seam allowance given in the pattern, so all the way around. Now make sure there's nothing in your way. You're just stitching through your exterior and your lining, and the zipper casing will obviously be in at the top there as well. When you get to where the sides are, where your D-rings are, just make sure they're pointing down so that you don't accidentally hit them. And if you're worried that your presser foot won't be able to get by them, what you can do is put your zipper foot on. That'll help you get past those D-rings. And what I'm having a problem with is when I get to that side, it's kind of funny, my foot goes under where the side seam is. Like right here. Now we need to turn the bag right sides out through the zipper pocket. And I know in the pattern we have the zipper pocket being closed right now, but I'm going to wait. And the reason is I like to make sure everything is nice and perfect before I close that opening. That way there I don't have to repick it if there's any issues, because I have gone back before and I was like, oh, there's something here, there's a little hole, I need to go back and fix that. Or just little issues that you need to go back and fix. So I like to leave that zipper pocket open so I can go back and fix it and not have to unpick it. So right now what I'm doing is pushing my lining back into my bag, and for some reason it's fighting me. That's why, because it's trying to go between this zipper pocket here. There. It's like the zipper pocket wants to tuck between the exterior zipper pocket. So I'm going to take this to my iron and I'm going to press this top edge, but when I press it, I'm going to press it so my zipper panel is down inside the bag. So you want this zipper casing to be down inside your bag, because when we top stitch, we're going to top stitch so that it's pushed towards the lining and it's not sticking out. So it's going to look like this. So I'm going to go press the bag, and I'm going to be careful when I get to these sides where this vinyl is so that I don't press there, but I want to press everywhere else. So I'm going to go do that, and then when I come back, we'll top stitch the bag, we'll close our zipper pocket opening, and then we'll create our strap. So now that I've pressed that top edge, I'm going to top stitch all the way around. Now you may notice that I've turned my bag so it is lining sides out, and that's because I don't have a free arm on my machine. So I turn my bag so they are lining sides out, and then the lining is against the bed of my machine. Excuse me. Watch out, baby. Somebody's looking for some attention. I guess she's been sleeping all day. Ooh, what's that? Now I'll let you play with that one. So I'm going to start on the side. Now just remember, you're going through quite a bit of bulk here. So if your machine is having a hard time, you may want to switch to a bigger needle. You may also want to try a walking foot because oftentimes that helps. But you can hear my machine, even as it gets to that bulky area, you can tell it's going through a little bit more bulk than the rest of the bag. So top stitch all the way around your bag. And this is also why I leave that zipper pocket open, so that when I go to turn this right sides out again, I can get everything all nicely pressed into the bag and everything. So remember that zipper casing is pointing down towards the lining of the bag. I don't know if you can see that right now. Yeah, you can. You can see how it's down towards the lining of the bag. What a good girl. Yeah. You look half asleep still. So I'm coming back to where I started, so I'm going to back stitch again. And then I'll cut my threads. You see the clip down there, eh? You see the clip down there, eh? So there we go, I've top stitched. Now I'm going to turn this back so it is exterior sides out. You messed your fur. Okay. Yeah. Hang on. So tuck everything back into the bag. Get everything all nice and flat. I'm going to reach into that zipper pocket because I didn't close it yet. I'm going to make sure all my corners are pushed out nicely. Now I'm going to grab the pocket and I'm going to pull it out of the bag. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to turn it so that it is pressed inside the bag. So push your pocket ends in. And you can take this to your iron and press it with your iron. Yes, I know, I know, I know. But I'm just going to do this with my hands if Buddy will let me. Someone's starving for attention, apparently. Apparently you don't get any, eh? I wonder if this microphone still picks up her purring. You're making it difficult. There. So I'm just going to finger press this to the wrong side. Okay. So I'm just finger pressing it to the wrong side so that you have it wrong sides in. So there's no raw edges. So you're just turning it under. Clip it together. And then I'm going to sew that opening closed all the way across. I just realized I still had it at my top stitch length, so I returned it back. push the pocket back inside the bag. Make sure you cut all your threads first. She's falling asleep sitting up. Lay down. So just get your pocket pushed back inside your bag so it's nice and flat, and everything else is nice and flat inside. Just going to make sure. And that's how your bag is looking so far. And I like that there's not a lot of heavy interfacing in the bag. It's just a nice structured bag with the bit of interfacing that we've used. And I've used canvas so it helps hold the structure a little bit more. But I really like it. It's a nice size bag too. I wish Buddy would come over and you can see the size there. If you look at Buddy compared to the size, come here, come here. We'll use Buddy for a size comparison. See? Like the same height as Buddy. She's a little one. But it's the same size as Buddy. Now, we're going to add some rivets to the side here. Now, if you don't have rivets, you can use some stitching. So you can just stitch where it's mentioned for placing the rivets. You can just stitch a box and then stitch an X inside that box, or you can just leave it as it is. You don't need to add it. But I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to add my rivets now, and then I'll come back and I will show you how to construct our strap. So here's my bag. I've attached my rivets to the sides, so you can see they're on the sides here. Now we're going to work on creating our strap. So we need our strap and we need all our hardware. Did I tickle your nose? Honey, did I tickle your nose? So grab your hardware. Now we're going to thread our slider onto our webbing. And if you haven't already, you can cut your webbing to the length and use your seam sealant that you like to use for the ends of your webbing. So then you'll take it, you'll pass the webbing through the slider, up over the middle bar, and back down. Just like that. And there's a measurement in the pattern for how far you're going to slide it. But what you're going to do is you're going to fold it first and then fold it again. So you're folding in the raw edge to cover the raw edge. You're folding it to cover the raw edge. So just like that. So fold it once and then fold it again. And then it goes against. So you folded it once. So you can see there's 3 layers here of my webbing. So fold it and then push it against the webbing. And then we're going to stitch that together. Now, I'm not going to stitch this. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use rivets later. So I'm going to leave it like that for now, and I'm going to use rivets just because I don't want to do stitching. I guess I'm being lazy sort of, but what you'll do is you'll sew a box all the way around and then you'll sew an X through it. And that's if you don't have rivets. You could even use Chicago screws if you prefer. Now, with your slider facing up, so right now I see the right side of my slider, I'm going to find the other end of my webbing, and I'm going to place my swivel hook so that it is hook against the table. I'm going to pass my webbing through the hardware on my swivel hook, bring it back to my slider, pass it up through one end of my slider, go down over the middle bar, so it'll look like this, and then bring it back. So now my slider is going to be wrong side up, so it's right side against the table. Again, swivel hook against the table, pass it through the end of the slider, and we're going to do the same thing that we did on the other end here of the with the slider. We're going to fold it using the measurement given in the pattern, and then place it together like that. So you have 3 layers, 1, 2, 3 when you fold it. And then you can again sew a box with an X all the way around, and then you are done. I'm going to go add some rivets, and then when I come back, I'll show you how it all looks. So I finished my straps with the rivets, as I mentioned I would. That's how it looks with the rivets all attached to the strap. And again, if you don't have rivets, you can use Chicago screws, but it is given in the pattern the instructions for sewing this. So you'll sew a box with an X to attach it. The nice thing about this kind of strap is not only can you wear it crossbody, but you can tighten this as tight as it can go in. You can wear it as a shoulder bag. It's great for if you're making this for a gift or say you sell at craft markets. You don't know how the person really wants to wear the bag, or maybe they like to have a shoulder bag for part of the day and then switch to crossbody to go hands-free. So it really is nice to have sort of like two options in one when it comes to this bag. So again, this is the Ember Crossbody Bag by Hold It Right There. I really do hope you enjoyed sewing along with me and maybe picked up a few tips and tricks along the way. Before you take your bag out to show it off to the world, don't forget to take lots of photos and share them in social media, including in the Facebook group, and also use the hashtags that are given in the pattern so we can all find your beautiful bags. Thank you for sewing with me. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye and happy sewing.